Hello everyone. Welcome back to your English listening practice. Today I am going to tell you a true story. It is a story about a boy who could barely walk, but he became a baseball star. This story will touch your heart. His name was Ricky Hill. He lived a long time ago, in a small town in America, from the day he was born. His body was not strong like other children. Ricky had a spine problem. Doctors said his back was weak. Because of this, he had to wear heavy metal braces on both his legs. The braces went from his ankles up to his knees. These braces were hard and cold. They made a clicking sound when Ricky walked. Other children laughed at him. They called him names. They said he was the lame boy who could never run. But Ricky had one secret joy. He loved baseball. Even though he could not run fast, he loved to swing a bat and hit a ball. One sunny afternoon, Ricky was playing near his house. He picked up a broken branch from a tree. He held it like it was a real baseball bat. He asked his friend to throw a small stone at him. His friend laughed, but threw it anyway. Ricky swung the branch with all his strength. The stone flew high into the sky. It went so fast and so far that everyone was shocked. It looked like a perfect home run. A young girl was watching from nearby. She did not believe what she saw. She thought Ricky was cheating somehow. She walked up to him and said, "If you can do that again and again, I will become your girlfriend." Ricky said nothing. He just picked up the branch one more time. He hit the stone, then again, then a third time. Every single time, the stone flew into the air like a small rocket. The girl could not believe her eyes. Ricky smiled and said, "I think you still believe I am cheating." The girl laughed and said, "I think you are a little crazy, but now you are my boyfriend." That is how Ricky got his first girlfriend. In the strangest way possible, word of this spread through the neighborhood. Ricky's older brother, Robert, heard the story. He did not believe it either. He said, "Do it again. I want to see it with my own eyes." So Ricky picked up another branch. He told Robert to stand far away and throw the stone as hard as he could. Robert smiled a proud smile. He thought, "Now I will see my little brother fail." He warmed up his arm like he was about to throw with full power. Ricky closed his eyes for a moment. He took a slow breath. In his mind, he saw a picture of a great baseball player, strong and confident. Robert threw the stone with all his strength. There was a loud crack. The stone flew high into the sky, far, far away. A second later, they heard the sound of breaking glass in the distance. Robert wanted to run away immediately, but Ricky did not move. He remembered something his father always said, "Whatever you do, you must take responsibility for it." So Ricky stood still and waited. A man came running out of his house. It was his car window that had broken. At first, he looked very angry. But when he saw where Ricky was standing, he stopped. He measured the distance in his mind. It was about 80 meters away. That was an incredible hit. His anger slowly disappeared. He looked down at the metal braces on Ricky's legs. He saw a boy who could barely walk, yet could hit a ball further than most grown men. The man picked up the stone and handed it back to Ricky. He said, "Do it one more time. I want to see this with my own eyes." Ricky did not hesitate. He took a breath, swung the branch, and once again the stone flew far into the sky. Perfect hit again. The man, whose name was Ray, was amazed. He said, "This boy is a natural baseball player." Then he made a promise. Ray said, "When your legs get better, I will be the first person to buy a ticket and watch you play in a real stadium." That simple promise planted a small seed in Ricky's heart, a seed of hope, a seed of a dream. But to everyone else, Ricky was still just that boy with the iron legs. The boy people laughed at, the boy nobody believed in. Since he could not run because of his spine disease, baseball was perfect for him in one special way. A batter does not always need to run if he hits a home run. Because Ricky could not run the bases like other players, every single hit of his had to be a home run. There was no other choice for him. In his free time, Ricky would watch baseball games on television. He would stare at the players hitting home runs, his eyes full of wonder. Whenever he could, Ricky would ask his father a simple question. "When can I take these braces off, Papa?" His father's answer was always the same. "No, not yet." The doctors were even more direct. They told the family that Ricky's legs would never work normally. Not now, not ever, for the rest of his life. These words felt like cold ice on Ricky's heart. Every time he heard them, a small fire of hope inside him grew a little dimmer. But his brother Robert never stopped believing in him. Robert saved money from odd jobs and bought baseball player cards. He gave them to Ricky as gifts. Whenever Ricky looked at those cards, studying how the players stood and swung their bats, his face would light up with a smile. But that smile rarely lasted long, because his father, James, was a very strict and serious man. James did not like his son's baseball dream. This was not because he didn't love Ricky. It was because he loved him too much. James was afraid that the sport would hurt Ricky's already weak legs even more. He wanted his son to be safe, to grow up working quietly in the church instead. One day James told Ricky firmly, "I have seen you behind the church, swinging that bat all day. You can hold the bat, but you cannot play real baseball." He continued, "You cannot even run if you try to play with other boys. People will laugh at you, they will call you crazy, and one day you will get hurt forever." James had seen many hard things in his life. He understood how cruel people could sometimes be. That is why he only wanted to protect his son from more pain. You see, James was a priest. He led a small church. But being a priest in those days did not pay much money. It was always difficult to support a big family. Still, no matter how hard life became, James never let his duties at the church slip. He worked hard to keep things proper and honest. But being so strict also caused problems. Some members of the church grew unhappy with James because of his strong rules. One church member complained that James was too harsh, too unwilling to forgive small human mistakes. Slowly, more and more people began to turn against him. Then one difficult Sunday, the church members came together and removed James from his position as priest. They told him to leave right away. Worse still, they told the family they must also give back the house. Since it belonged to the church, the Hill family suddenly had nowhere to live. The whole family packed their few belongings into the car and drove away, not knowing exactly where they were going next. Along the road, more bad luck struck them. The car broke down on a lonely highway. James got out and looked at the damage, feeling completely helpless. He knelt down on the ground and prayed quietly, but just after his prayer, one of the tires burst too. Felt like nothing could go right. Frustrated by everything that had happened, James kicked the broken car in anger. The whole family woke up startled by the noise. Then, as if things could not get worse, thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was coming. The Hill family sat by their broken car, half laughing and half crying at their bad luck. Rain began to pour down. Everyone scrambled to get back inside the car, but the driver's door was stuck and would not open. James was trapped outside in the rain, unable to get in or push the car forward. Felt like the whole world was against him. Just then, a passing car stopped to help. An old couple saw the family in trouble and offered to take them home to rest and dry off. As they talked, the old couple learned about the family's hard situation. The husband kindly offered James a new job, even though it was a humble one. With no other choice, James accepted the offer gratefully. The next day, the family traveled on and finally arrived in a small new town. The house they were given was old and broken down. It was a shock at first, but at least they had a roof over their heads and did not have to sleep outside. It was a new town, a new beginning, and maybe, just maybe, new possibilities for the whole family. One afternoon, Ricky and Robert were walking around exploring their new neighborhood. From a distance, they spotted some boys playing baseball in a field. The two brothers walked closer and asked if they could join the game. The boy leading the group looked Ricky up and down, his eyes stopping on the metal leg braces. With a mocking smile, the boy said no. Ricky did not argue. He simply looked at his braces with quiet determination. That evening at home, the family gathered for dinner. Everyone was smiling and chatting, unaware of something amazing that was about to happen. Suddenly, everyone noticed Ricky slowly standing up from his chair. He had no braces on, no support at all. He was standing on his own 2 feet. James stared in complete shock. Those metal braces, which had never once left his son's legs since he was a baby, were now sitting empty on the floor. James rushed over and hugged Ricky tightly. He was so overwhelmed with emotion that he could not even speak. That night, James made a special decision. He took the whole family out to eat a nice dinner together, to celebrate this small miracle. As days passed, news spread through the town that a new youth baseball team was forming. Ricky desperately wanted to join, but there was one problem. The coach needed a signed permission form from each child's parents before they could play. On the day, the other kids gathered around the coach to hand in their signed forms. Ricky stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, his head down. He knew, deep in his heart, that his father would never agree to sign the form, but with encouragement from his brother, he found the courage to ask the coach for a blank form anyway. That evening, Ricky bravely placed the form in front of his father. Just as he expected, James refused to even look at it. James was still terrified that the sport would damage his son's fragile legs permanently. His answer remained a firm no. After that, Ricky began standing by the fence around the practice field almost every single day. He would watch the other boys train, his eyes filled with longing. One day, a new friend gave Ricky an idea. He said the coach was famously forgetful and might not even check whose signature was on the form. Robert agreed that his little brother deserved this chance more than anyone, so Robert carefully copied their father's signature onto the form. But the coach turned out to be more careful than they expected. That very night, he visited the Hill family's home to speak with James directly. Even though the truth about the forged signature came out, the coach looked James straight in the eye and spoke honestly from his heart. He said, "To be honest, your son is an amazing hitter. I have never seen anyone hit a ball so far and so hard. It is truly a gift from God." The coach tried his very best to convince James to let Ricky play. He stood at the door, explaining again and again why this opportunity mattered. But no matter what he said, James would not change his mind. The coach finally gave up, shook his head sadly, and turned to leave. James called Ricky out from where he was hiding behind the door, ready to scold him for the forged signature. But before he could speak, Robert stepped forward. Robert bravely took full responsibility for forging the signature, trying to protect his younger brother from punishment. Then Ricky finally found the courage to say what was truly in his heart. He said, "When I pick up that bat, Papa, I am no longer the boy everyone laughs at." He continued, "I feel like little David standing against the giant Goliath. This means everything to me. Can't you see that, Papa?" But even hearing his son's heartfelt words, James did not soften to punish Robert for lying. He took him outside and prepared to discipline him with his belt. He raised his hand high in the air, but somehow his hand froze there. He could not bring himself to do it. He simply said, "Go inside," and lowered his arm. Slowly, without anyone really noticing, this strict and tough father was beginning to change inside. Even at church, when people made noise or small mistakes, James began letting things go more easily than before, as if his heart had softened. The day after that incident, Ricky approached his father again, choosing a quiet moment when James was free to talk. He told his father firmly that baseball was his life, his passion, but he promised he would also grow up to be a good and faithful man, just like his father wanted. Ricky pulled out a piece of paper. On it, he had drawn a diagram of a baseball field, with all 4 bases connected together. He explained to his father that running around the bases was, in its own way, similar to standing faithfully in the church, step by step with purpose. He placed the paper gently into his father's hands and walked away. As James looked down at his son's drawing, something inside his stubborn heart began to melt. Time moved forward. Eventually, Ricky stood proudly on a real baseball field, finally allowed to play. Before every single swing, Ricky would draw a small cross on the ground with the tip of his bat, a quiet prayer before each hit. Years of hard practice slowly turned him into one of the most exciting players on the field. No matter how the pitcher threw the ball, Ricky found a way to hit it hard, Ray, the man whose car window Ricky had once broken, kept his promise. He became close to the family and eventually became Ricky's personal coach. Ray wanted to help Ricky go even further, so he introduced him to a professional baseball scout, someone who could open doors to bigger leagues. Ricky knew he had to give everything he had, but fate, as always, liked to test him in unexpected ways. On the day of his big tryout match, Ricky noticed a familiar face standing across the field. It was the same boy who had mocked him as a child. Their eyes met. The boy, now a pitcher, talked confidently, boasting that he would humiliate Ricky in front of everyone. Ricky paid him no attention. He focused completely on the game in front of him. The first pitch came, and he missed it. The other team scored a point, but Ricky quickly steadied himself, took a breath, and waited for the next pitch. When the second fast pitch came flying toward him, Ricky swung perfectly. The ball soared through the air. Perfect home run. The crowd roared with excitement. The scout stood at the edge of the field, watching closely, clearly impressed. Everything seemed to be going exactly right. But then, disaster struck as Ricky ran to catch a ball. His foot slipped on a wet sprinkler area on the grass. He fell hard. His ankle twisted badly underneath him. He was rushed immediately to the hospital. The doctor's words hurt even more than the injury itself. He explained that important tendons connecting Ricky's leg muscles to his ankle bone had completely torn apart. Surgery would be needed urgently. The cost would be around $7,000, maybe even more. For a poor family, this was an enormous amount of money. And there was even worse news. The doctor discovered that Ricky also had a severe advanced spine disease. His back, the doctor said, looked like the back of a 60-year-old man. The family was in despair. To raise money, both brothers took on every small job they could find around town. When people in the community heard about Ricky's situation, many of them began to help. They donated whatever small amount they could spare. Even with everyone's generosity, the family was still far short of the money needed for the surgery. They sat together at home, worried and unsure of what to do. Then Ray arrived one day holding a newspaper. It announced that Major League Baseball trials would soon be held in their city. This was Ricky's one chance. Ray decided, without hesitation, that he would sell his own farm to help pay for Ricky's surgery so he could heal in time. But James stopped him. He truly did not want his son to risk further injury and heartbreak because of baseball, after everything that had already happened. Years of fear held James back from allowing this risk. In that tense and silent moment, Ricky's grandmother quietly stood up. She did not say very much, but she made a firm decision on her own. She took out a loan to cover the cost of the surgery. The surgery itself went well, but once again, the doctor's words felt like cold water poured over Ricky's hopes. He explained that full recovery would take at least 6 months. This meant Ricky would almost certainly miss the Major League trial completely. For a while, Ricky's whole world felt dark and hopeless, but he refused to simply give up. Even with his legs still in a plaster cast, he went out to the field every single day, leaning on crutches, swinging the bat over and over again. Sweat dripped onto the ground beneath him. He was not just training for his own dream anymore. He wanted to make every person who had helped him proud. But sadness was not finished visiting his family yet. Soon after, his beloved grandmother passed away. Before she left this world, she held Ricky's hand gently and told him she would always be watching over him from heaven. Ricky cried so hard he could barely speak. Her words stayed deep inside his heart, fueling something fierce within him. Refusing to let this loss break his spirit, Ricky made a bold and almost reckless decision. He picked up his bat. He aimed it directly at his own plaster cast and struck it with full force. Pieces of plaster flew everywhere across the ground. His swollen, still healing foot was now exposed underneath. But this was the only way he knew to grab hold of a dream that was slipping away from him. James ran forward to stop his son, but Ricky's mother held him back gently, letting Ricky make this choice for himself. In the days that followed, with his brother's steady support, Ricky began an intense and painful training routine. Every single swing of his bat now carried the weight of all his hopes and dreams. Every careful step was a quiet battle against fate itself. The boy that doctors once said would never walk properly again was now writing the next chapter of his own incredible story. Around this time, Ray brought even bigger news. One of America's most respected baseball scouts would be attending the trial the following week. The night before the big trial, Ricky sat quietly inside his father's church. His heart felt heavy and uncertain. He did not want to disrespect his father's wishes. He simply wanted more than anything to make his father proud of who he was becoming. But that desire had been buried so deep for so long that Ricky had almost forgotten what it felt like to be praised by his own father. James stayed quiet that night. No one truly knew what thoughts were running through his mind, but his love for his son ran far deeper than Ricky ever realized. Late that night, in the darkness, James quietly picked up his son's old baseball bat and glove. Inside the glove, he carefully wrote a few words of blessing. Before going to sleep, Ricky was reading a book about overcoming leg injuries. Determined to understand his own body and how to heal it, when Ricky later saw what his father had written inside the glove, a warmth filled his heart that he had never felt before. The next morning, the big day finally arrived. Baseball hopefuls from every corner of the state had gathered for the trial. Out of all these players, only a small handful would be chosen to move forward. The competition was fierce, and every single movement was being closely watched by the scouts. Ricky knew he could not afford to hold anything back. He poured every bit of strength into each swing of the bat. Even while running, despite the sharp pain shooting through his leg, he pushed forward without complaint. Still, one of the scouts paused and shook his head while looking at Ricky's leg. He said that no matter how talented a hitter Ricky was, his injured leg was simply too big a risk for any team to accept. Ricky looked at him calmly and said, "Give me just one more chance. If I don't turn every single ball into a home run, I will quit baseball myself, forever." The scout studied him for a long moment, then finally agreed to give him one final opportunity. True to his word, Ricky hit every single ball with incredible accuracy, sending them flying far beyond the field. even into the neighboring field nearby. The coach managing that nearby field, a man named Coach Murph, at first assumed it was one of his own players hitting so powerfully. But as more and more balls came soaring in, he realized something truly special was happening. He sent someone to bring this mysterious young hitter to him. Coach Murph praised Ricky's incredible natural talent, but the moment he learned about Ricky's leg injury, his expression changed completely. He stated plainly that Ricky simply was not fit to play at this level, given the risk to his health. Yet something about the determination in Ricky's eyes seemed to soften him slightly. He offered Ricky one final test. There would be an exhibition match the next day. If Ricky could successfully hit against the team's best pitcher, Coach Murph promised he would reconsider his decision. Ricky treated this single opportunity as if it were more important than anything else in his entire life. On the day of the match, the stadium was completely full of spectators as Ricky walked out onto the field. A strange and powerful feeling washed over him. For the first time, he truly felt like he was standing on a real major league field, surrounded by the roar of the crowd. The game began. Ricky felt extremely nervous facing such tough competition. His first pitch came in, and he missed it completely. He missed the second pitch too. A heavy silence fell over the stadium. Every single eye in the crowd was fixed on him. Before the third pitch arrived, Ricky took a slow, steady breath to calm himself. Then he swung the bat with full focus. This time he made perfect contact. From that moment forward, Ricky found his rhythm completely. He began hitting every pitch exactly where he aimed. No matter which pitcher the coach sent in to challenge him, Ricky kept hitting solidly. Frustrated, Coach Murph decided to raise the stakes even further. He brought in the team's star pitcher, their very best player, to face Ricky directly. Many in the crowd felt this was deeply unfair to Ricky. Ricky missed the first pitch from this powerful new pitcher. He missed the second one too, but on the third pitch, he gritted his teeth and swung with everything he had. The ball flew into the air, but it landed straight into the opposing player's glove. It was a near miss, and it meant Ricky had to work even harder. This frustrated the star pitcher even more. In his anger, he threw the very next pitch directly and forcefully toward Ricky's body. The ball struck Ricky hard on the shoulder. He fell instantly to the ground in obvious pain. A heavy silence spread across the entire stadium. Everyone assumed he would not be able to stand back up, but after a long, tense moment, Ricky slowly began to move again. He pushed himself up off the ground, straightened his aching back, and picked up his bat once more, ready to face the next pitch. He wasn't entirely sure if this moment was some kind of miracle. He only knew one thing for certain. He had given too much blood, sweat, and effort to get here, and he was not going to stop now. No matter how strong his opponent was, Ricky was determined to deliver his very best swing. The battle inside him continued to burn. On the very next pitch, Ricky swung with every ounce of strength left in his body. The ball soared high and far into the open sky. It was one of the most spectacular sights anyone there had ever witnessed, including James, who had come quietly to watch from the crowd. Standing among the cheering spectators, James watched his son, the same boy who once wore heavy iron braces on his legs, hit a ball further than anyone else that day. The entire stadium erupted in thunderous applause. In that single moment, every wall James had built around his heart finally came crashing down. He realized with absolute certainty that from this day forward he would always be deeply proud of his son. This is a true story. In real life, Ricky Hill went on to sign a contract with the Montreal Expos professional baseball team. He had finally achieved the dream that once seemed completely impossible for a boy doctors said would never walk normally. Later in life, he married the very same girl who, as a child, had promised to be his girlfriend if he could prove his incredible talent. He played for wonderful years of professional baseball until his weak spine finally could not handle the physical demands of the game any longer. When he finally had to hang up his uniform, Ricky did not give up on baseball entirely. Instead, he became a coach himself, teaching countless young players over the years. And today, the boy who once hit stones with a broken tree branch tells everyone the same powerful lesson from his own life. Fate may tie down a man's legs. It may slow him down, hurt him, or test him again and again. But fate can never, ever capture a person's courage. That courage belongs only to the one who refuses to give up. And that, my friends, is the true story of Ricky Hill, a boy who turned an impossible dream into reality. Thank you for listening.